In 1909, deep in Alaska's brutal wilderness, where the cold can kill dreams in a single night, a massive wooden building rose, defying every rule. Called Immortal, it's more than timber and nails, it's a challenge to nature, distance, and history itself. But why does it exist? And what about the other forgotten mysteries, from bizarre concrete domes to ancient Russian cathedrals? Stay tuned to uncover untold stories where humans conquered the impossible. You won't believe what's revealed. Picture this, a sprawling, savage wilderness where the sky presses down like an iron lid, and the earth itself seems to rebel against every footstep. Nordterra in the 1800s and early 1900s wasn't some idyllic frontier for dreamers planting flags, it was a merciless beast, a frozen labyrinth where wanderers rushed through, ravaged its veins for gold and furs, or hunkered down in desperate defiance, teetering on the brink of oblivion, far beyond the ink-smudged edges of any map and deeper still into the wild recesses of the human spirit. Today, Nordterra still hums with an eerie allure of the unknown, but back then, it was no swashbuckling saga of glory. It was a grim, gut-wrenching grind, worlds away from Europe's eternal stone fortresses, hewn meticulously across ages like layers of ancient skin, or the eastern U.S. thriving metropolises, where sturdy bricks stacked high on the backs of bustling trade routes and endless convoys. Nordterra. It was a symphony of desolation, endless horizons swallowing hope, solitude that echoed like a scream in the void, cold that clawed through flesh and bone, and inconveniences that piled up like snowdrifts, outrageously pricey to invade, ruinously expensive to cling to life, and savagely punishing to fools who dared blink at its wrath. Every fateful choice, where to stake your claim, how to slap together a refuge, what ragged bits to scavenge, was born from the raw terror of survival. Permanence. That was a ghost, a whisper banished to the shadows, if it haunted thoughts at all. This visceral, do-or-die ethos. It seeped into every nail driven, every log felled, forging the soul of the land itself. Through the haze of the 18th and early 19th centuries, Nordterra flickered in Western fantasies as a shadowy Arctic enigma, coveted for its luxurious pelts that draped royal shoulders, its silvery schools of fish that filled bellies and coffers, and later, its glittering ores buried like secrets in the dirt, but never, ever whispered as a haven for roots and hearths. Imperial traders thrust their flags into coastal crags, erecting ramshackle bastions, but these were no thriving hamlets, they were predatory perches, mere tentacles for siphoning wealth. Envision them, chaotic fur bazaars alive with haggling and hides, fortified caches bulging with provisions, and the occasional candlelit chapel echoing with fervent prayers, all engineered for hit-and-run harvests, not eternal empires. When America claimed Nordterra in 1867, derided as Harlow's Folly, in snide headlines, the disdain lingered like frost on glass. It wasn't envisioned as a forge for human triumph, but a colossal, ice-bound treasure chest, its locks begging for picks. The yawning gulfs of distance turned it into a logistical hell, supplies bobbed in on creaking ships, no overland lifelines to the heartland. Within its borders, journeys were epic ordeals, mighty rivers armored in ice for endless months, only to dissolve into sucking bogs come the sloppy thaw. Erection of any edifice meant warring against not just the pull of the ground and the fury of gales, but the smothering weight of utter abandonment. This soul-crushing seclusion carved a stark, unforgiving blueprint for creation, erect only what your heart can endure seeing torn asunder. The fledgling outposts of Nordterra, ancient native clusters, imperial footholds, sprouting American enclaves, drowned in a sea of timber skeletons. Wood wasn't chosen for its grace, it was thrust upon them by sheer necessity, the lone survivor in a barren arsenal. Stone. That demanded armies of quarriers hacking at unyielding rock, sculptors chiseling perfection, caravans hauling burdens, and elite stonemasons, phantoms in this forsaken realm. Bricks craved roaring furnaces and meticulous molding, iron frames hungered for blazing smelters and precision instruments Nordterra scorned. Wood, though. It sprouted defiantly from the soil, felled with crude swings, mended in haste, and reborn when it succumbed to decay's gnaw, warping's twist, fire's roar, or the cold's shattering embrace. It reigned as the reluctant emperor. Yet even these wooden bastions were stripped to essentials, hammered up in frenzied bursts, pennies pinched, and braced for inevitable ruin. Seasonal phantoms, they were, bare-bones shelters pulsing with purpose, devoid of frills, crafted under the grim prophecy of fleeting lifespans, years at best, not generations. Gold rushes birthed feverish metropolises from dawn's mist, only to evaporate like breath on a blade. Coastal hamlets ballooned with the salmon's silver rush, then deflated as seasons turned, trade nooks materialized, migrated, or disintegrated with the whims of commerce's tide. Longevity was a fool's pursuit, nimbleness was the holy grail. As settlements dug in deeper, their forms still betrayed a haunting insecurity, deceptive facades masking humble truths, adornments as sparse as stars in a storm, structures that seemed to question their own right to stand. Nordterra's tempests weren't mere chills, they were predatory forces, assassins of ambition with razor-sharp precision. Construction windows flashed like lightning, brief, betraying. Arctic gales turned timber to fragile glass, permafrost sneered at any anchor dug deep, avalanches of powder buried ambitions under crushing white tombs, and the endless dance of freeze and flood pulverized the unwary like a millstone. Trailblazers absorbed brutal lessons, embrace austerity, or invite apocalypse. Not from cowardice, but because a single oversight unleashed horrors, repairs stalled for moons, reinforcements voyages away. Dwellings crouched low, peaks sliced simple, daring designs. Reckless gambles courting catastrophe. This tapestry of trials is the key that unlocks wonder, amid a realm of ephemera, a defiant monolith screams for scrutiny. Nordterra's heartbeat throbbed with nets cast wide and barters along crashing shores, salmon legions commanding where humanity clustered. Settlements feasted on the frenzy of scaling, salting, crating, wharves jutting like defiant fingers, hulking processors belching steam, aromatic smoke dens, colossal barns looming like guardians of the deep, all mechanical monsters devouring efficiency, scorning artistry or immortality. The interior. A sparse constellation of riverine crossroads swapping necessities, but edifices bowed low before the tyranny of trails. Nordterra's architectural odyssey defies gentle arcs, it's a jagged bolt, from primal indigenous lodges to imperial spires of faith, rugged pioneer posts, then abruptly, bastions of stone-cold resolve that jar against their forebears. It's as if Nordterra vaulted over epochs, not veiled in enigma, but pulsing with structures that defy the land's savage script. Remote, evoke no tranquil idols, just agonizing silences between missives, lone wolves barking orders, ceaseless jury-rigs, and evolution or extinction. This crucible birthed a creed of raw utility over opulent visions. Lavishing labor on extravagances beyond bare bones. Lunacy in a domain where wreckage was ritual and transience the creed. Yet, enigmas endure, not swarms, but beacons piercing the fog, demanding reckoning. They mock the frontier's guarded sparsity, radiating audacious poise, as if architects beheld Nordterra not as a fleeting trial, but an eternal throne. In my eyes, Nordterra was sculpted for plunder, not posterity, fueled by raids, resilience, and restless marches, not immortal marks. Thus, monuments hinting at grand schemes and lavish pours defy dismissal. No witch hunt on history, just laying the groundwork bare. To unravel these marvels, immerse in their genesis, timber's tyranny, collapse's certainty, seclusion's dream slayer, and weather's vengeful blade. Behold the timber hall of 1909, an enigma that quirks a brow in the annals. Digest Nordterra's 1909 savagery, and scheming a colossal, calculated spectacle borders on folly. This era shunned architectural peacocking for pomp, it was a desperate plea for validation from distant capitals, ensnared in mining mania, migrant masses, and vanishing villages, perceived as primal chaos, not promised land. Yet, bold souls sanctioned a woodland wonder, forged with fervor and magnitude that pulsed with unshakable faith over frantic scraps. The timber hall thundered as a manifesto, Nord Terra transcends glacial vaults, its timber empires, visionary horizons, institutional fire. Discordant amid hovels, illusory storefronts, slapdash mills faded to fade. Towering for its time and isolation, it paraded Nord Terra's arboreal riches. Wholly wooded, sensible. Until vastness, exactitude, sheen assault senses. No crude cabin, a regal arena to captivate envoys, financiers, luminaries, affirming groves as conquerable, bountiful, oversight deserving. Its expanse commanded schematics, eclipsing regional rudiments. Interiors, galleries aglow, showcases gleaming, bureaus bustling, not crude covers. Seasons of synchronized sweat in Nord Terra's ephemeral summers, where hiccups heralded hibernal halts. 1909 erections. Races against relentless clocks, dives in mercury-fractured implements, fissured beams, crippled crews. Its birth. Titanic toil, teetering on temerity, as if mortals mocked the wild's maw. Substances, curated spruce, hemlock, cedar for vigor, pliancy, allure. Revelation, crafted for spectacle, not obscurity. Beauty in brutality's grip. Outlandish. Reaping. Titanic, fellers with blades, hatchets, pulleys clashing against untamed wild sands paths, engines, skylifts. Treks by runners, rafts, tracks, prey to tempests. Site shaping, molding, raising evoked artisan legions. Origins of these virtuosos. Rallying force. Purpose in perdition. Masters migrated for mightier magnets sans deep pockets or syndicate sinew. No caprice, forestry overlords propelled to seize domains, showcase guardianship, cement clout. Dream, Nord Terra as enduring jewel, philosophical plank proclamation. Erectors, probable passers-by, wagered wildly on a showcase sans extraction edge, for pomp and paperwork. Deranged. Encampments crude, rations sparse, drudgery in dim dawns. Harmony sans signals, harvesters, artisans, porters, overseers, auditors, gusts or gaps could gut it. Exquisite, it ascended, skeletons soaring, skin sealed, cores cultivated. For me, it pivots Nord Terra from ordeal to oracle, inscribed in grain. Anti-state, skeleton infra, scant souls, precocious presage. Spectators. Dignitaries, grandees, speculators, natives blending wonder and bewilderment. External emblem, Nord Terra warrants regimen, riches. Wager. Conviction in continuity. Lunacy in its brazen bucking of barriers. They etched audacity into lumber, igniting inquiries on genesis, beneficiaries. Plunge headfirst into the ice-veined veins of the timber hall's legend, where raw human defiance ignited against Nord Terra's savage symphony of storms and shadows, birthing a colossal testament from the forest's fierce heart. This wasn't mere construction, it was alchemy, a volcanic eruption of ambition that reshaped the frozen frontier's fate. In 1909, as Nord Terra writhed in its primal cradle, the timber hall didn't creep from the earth, it exploded upward, a seismic shout of rebellion that dared the Arctic abyss to blink first. Envision the chaos, mist-cloaked bays where vessels heaved like wounded giants, sailors bellowing curses into the relentless sleet, and the untamed wild snarling back at every hammer's swing. Yet, in this maelstrom, the federal forestry overlords, visionary warriors in suits, unfurled their blueprints like battle standards, vowing to morph Nord Terra from a whispered curse into a glittering siren call. The hall surged forth not from fear's clutches, but from a blazing core of intent, a towering wooden leviathan engineered to flaunt the land's sylvan splendors before the jaded elites in far-off marble corridors. It bellowed, "Behold us, not as a desolate crypt, but as a verdant dominion teeming with emerald fortunes." Now, let's unravel the intoxicating mystique of the timber hall, for its spellbinding essence, or sheer lunacy, pulses in the exquisite orchestration of its elements, catapulting it leagues beyond the ramshackle hovels scarring the horizon. Spruce pillars, rigid as ancient sentinels and forged in unbreakable resolve, anchored the soul, their pungent essence blending with the briny gusts like an intoxicating brew from forbidden realms. Hemlock infused ironclad fortitude, its threads narrating epics of endurance amid shrieking tempests. Cedar. That was the enchanter's flourish, aromatic, impervious to decay's insidious whisper, and visually hypnotic, with veins swirling like wildfire under the pallid polar glow. These weren't haphazard plunders, they were symphonic selections, harmonized for prowess and poetry. In a domain where existence clawed for every breath, embracing elegance was outright insurrection, a tantalizing tango with opulence. Why court such splendor when a lone gale could obliterate it all? But the architects did, sculpting an edifice destined not merely to persist, but to enchant, to ensnare the roving stares of financiers and functionaries, murmuring seductions of boundless bounty concealed in the infinite groves. Reaping these arboreal titans was no serene woodland ramble, it was a visceral clash of titans, human spirit versus primordial fury, each axe stroke thundering like a war drum. Brigades of loggers, visages carved by toil and turmoil, stormed the verdant fortresses with crosscut symphonies slicing through hides, hatchets devouring cores, and hoists groaning like legendary colossi. The landscape retaliated with venom, tendrils gripping like demonic talons, inclines treacherous as quicksand, and foliage dense as labyrinthine nightmares. No smoothed avenues lightened their burden, no mechanized behemoths amplified their fury. It was unadulterated, excruciating brawn, warriors straining sinews, steeds foaming in exertion, conveyances creaking beneath monumental burdens. Conveyance. A enigma steeped in jeopardy. Frozen waterways doubled as glacial expressways, yet a solitary fracture could hurl empires into oblivion's maw. Sleds skimmed crystalline expanses, but wideouts ensnared them in frosty prisons. Primitive tracks, if conjured, shuddered with each tremor, primed for cataclysms that could shatter visions in a heartbeat. And the elements? A whimsical despot, unleashing cataclysms that veiled visions, deluges that bloated brooks into frenzied furies, and shrouds that devoured souls. Yet, against all odds, the bounty materialized, stacked skyward at the epicenter, primed for the sorcerer's incantations. There, the genuine wizardry ignited, transmuting colossal brutes into flawless girders, slabs, and veneers. Blade wielders, virtuosos of their domain, navigated edges with infallible grace, alchemizing disorder into harmony. The atmosphere vibrated with the keen of instruments, particulate auroras whirling like aureate blizzards, as forms materialized, struts for sustenance, sheaths for safeguard, accents for that irresistible luster. This craved not brute force alone, but intellect, a passionate waltz with lumber's caprices, intuiting its expansions in vapor, contractions in chill, and rebellions or submissions under duress. Elite joiners, scarcer than auroras in midsummer, wove it together with unions that clasped like eternal vows, interlocks, sockets, projections, guaranteeing the hull's defiance against the terrain's ceaseless barrages. Enigmas eddy like whirlpools, from whence these maestros? The glacial north repulsed such genius, it banished all save the indomitable. Who invoked them? Sovereign treasuries, perchance, or enigmatic patrons harboring dreams vaster than the summits. And why brave such inferno? The harvest wasn't instant sustenance or sparkle, it was a wager on Norterra's dawn, a stake that this glacial riddle could erupt into opulence. The genesis of the timber hull wasn't a whimsical reverie, it was a precision assault, masterminded by the U.S. Forestry Vanguard to claim dominion, parade custodianship, and entwine Norterra into the Republic's tapestry. Picture the sanctums in the Capitol, parchments unfurled like arcane tomes, digits charting passages through void expanses, debates raging over the folly of channeling riches into a realm that devoured aspirations. Yet, they forged ahead, propelled by a doctrine that perceived Nord Terra not as a cumbersome limb, but a throbbing vital essence brimming with promise. The hall morphed into a timber treatise, a corporeal contention that this borderland merited oversight, reverence, and riches. Erectors, likely nomads unbound to the turf, infused their essence into an endeavor whose yields they'd scarcely savor. That irony blazes luminously, wanderers crafting infinity. On terra firma, verity struck viciously, quagmires engulfing sols, literal cascades unceasing, insect hordes banqueting like spectral fiends in ephemeral warmths, and provisioning threads unraveling like frayed cords. Laborers quartered in tenuous canvases flapping like capitulation banners, devoured cured catches and unyielding loaves, and toiled through crepuscular spans, their beacons twinkling like rebellious constellations. All for an edifice that unearthed no veins or ensnared no schools, but cradled expositions and ledgers, a sanctuary of spectacle amid aboriginal anarchy. Synchronization was the veiled protagonist, or antagonist, in this odyssey. Harvesters attuned with transporters, artisans with overseers, all sans the opulence of wires or waves. Timetables were hallowed manuscripts, a squall distant from shreds. A tardy vessel could paralyze the cosmos, stranding legions as winter's spectre loomed. Yet, victory prevailed, scaffolds soared like osseous behemoths, barriers encapsulated enigmas, sanctums burnished to a gloss that jeered the encircling filth. This wasn't haphazard, it was orchestral exactitude, a creed verging on zealotry. To my discerning eye, the timber hall heralds Nord Terra's renaissance, a swivel from mere subsistence to splendor, ingrained in every fiber and furrow. Manifesting in 1909, antecedent to sovereignty, with skeletal conduits scarcely throbbing and inhabitants rarer than fog's clarity, it resonates as a foretelling uttered prematurely, a harbinger of surges yet to thunder. Who witnessed this marvel? Mandarins with creased countenances, luminaries in crisp attires, opportunists scenting prospects, and indigenes, tempered trawlers and excavators, ogling in an elixir of exaltation and perplexity, pondering why such Olympian exertion evaded their dripping domiciles. The hall projected externally, a beacon to the mainland, Nord Terra is deserving, structure us, subsidize us, entrust in us. That entreaty craved substantiation, and the timber hall furnished, a ligneous venture on perpetuity. The authentic delirium? Its unbounded assurance, mocking meteorology's malice, expanse's autocracy, and rationale's confines. Architects decreed Nord Terra not a ordeal to weather, but a podium to radiate, perpetuating that temerity in 1909's arboreal arteries, bequeathing a heritage that still kindles inquisitive infernos, how, why, and for whose concealed machinations. Compel thyself to reincarnate the timber hall's genesis, not as an antiquated annotation, but as a palpable pilgrimage, thrust by tortuous thrust, beneath Nord Terra's pitiless scrutiny. The chronology solitary is a mandible descender, how expeditiously did this mammoth ascend? Chronicles vaunt lunar cycles, not annals, for postponement equated annihilation. Nord Terra's erection epoch was a ephemeral boon, vernal slovenly dissolution to autumnal's glacial vice, a delirious dash where phases interwove in tumultuous concord, toppling colossi, conveying through Hades, refining with frenzy, scaffolding frenetically, barricading versus the onslaught, and culminating with panache. Ere the target? Thou weren't deferred, thou were extinguished. Implements fragmented in abyssal fractures, trunks fissured like vitreous souls, digits benumbed to futile appendages, maladies toppled the robust, and linkages fractured like fragile oaths. Accomplishing it in solitary revolution? A exploit that mandates veneration. Presently, with bellowing apparatuses, satellite-steered armadas, modular miracles, and perpetual provisions, it'd still levy savants. Then, it borders on the legendary. The workforce conundrum intensifies the allure, formal narratives murmur, brigades, and ensembles, but this wasn't a motley cadre of idealists. Toppling premier exemplars necessitated multitudes, scores harmonizing blades in concerto. Conveying hosts of vigor, fluvial tamers, runner sovereigns, or track ruffians traversing phantasms. Refining and elevating maestros of framework, comprehending burdens, unions, progressions, blunders irrevocable, reserves eons remote. Myriads, enumerating the lattice, immediate mallets to remote purveyors. Sheltering them. In what shanties? Nourishing the multitude. Remunerating the toll. Orchestrating the symphony in foundational abyss. Doubt ascends, fortitude doesn't conjure flotillas, determination doesn't displace monticules of magnitude. Frameworks, refined through tribulations, and obliterated sagacity must have buttressed it wholly. Ponder the arbors as leads, no enchanted conveyance, each was reconnoitered, vanquished, denuded, dimensioned, and transported. Chill rendered lumber capricious, edges dulled prompt, lapses exacted extremities or existences. Yet, they garnered hoard sans motorized saws or loaders, alluding to esoteric harmony with cycles and essences. Conveyance narratives tantalize, powder appeared sleek, till cascades ambushed, crystal vowed trails, till crevasses gaped, creatures wearied, mortals wavered. Every trunk a wager, yet abundance materialized immaculate. Scheming surpassed ad-lib, it prefigured the polar's pranks. Hibernal interlaced somber filaments, preparation endured in the congeal, encampments defended, inventories safeguarded, segments prepared for vernal's onslaught. Annual cadence, varnished in varnishes. Assembly. Exactitude verse, no capricious accumulations, energies streamed, barriers ascended authentic, canopies fortified versus powder's blockade. Persistence shrieked proficiency, perchance vanished lore, not enchantment, but ancestral brilliance in attraction's gambit, chill's clutch, humidity's ballet, chronology's despotism. Contemporaries brute compel with automatons, they synchronized with inferno. Proficiency bordered merciless, sans security's mesh. Nevertheless, strains credence, celerity, immensity, fluidity, debacle's vacuum, all excessively refined for hazard's arena. Epics should have overflowed calamities, demolitions, disintegrations, desertions. Rather, hush. Annals retouched, or constructors' deities. I wager the posterior, colossuses of tenacity, wisdom-laden, unsung. Atmospheric murmurs, arrangement arcana, tempo virtuosity, uninscribed, vaporized. The hull. A ossified attestation of prowess beneath compression. It pulverizes advancement fables, bereft contraptions, moderns might disintegrate where forebears prevailed. Disconcerting. That's why we attenuate to resilience, evading their paramount acumen. Congregated, the timber hall indicts our conceit, if they prevailed then, with those ordeals and implements, what erudition have we dissipated in our apparatus-obsessed odyssey? Step into the swirling vortex of Dome Haven's bizarre legacy, a concrete colossus that squats defiantly on the edge of sanity, taunting every passerby with its silent scream, "What madness birthed me here?" Long before it morphed into a digital darling for thrill seekers, urban nomads, and content creators chasing viral chills, Dome Haven was already a glaring aberration, perched stubbornly along the frontier trail between Anchor Bay and Fairhaven like a forgotten relic from a fever dream. Forget the polished narratives, Dome Haven is a seven-tiered behemoth of reinforced gray matter, molded into the absurd likeness of an oversized snow dome, hammered into existence in the early 1970s. And that solitary fact should jolt you awake like a slap from the Arctic wind. 7 stories piercing the sky, in Nordterra's desolate heart, a shape that's as structurally quirky as it is inefficient, defying every law of logic in a land where even the hardiest dreams freeze solid. The tidy tale pitches it as a quirky roadside lure, a lodge for weary travelers, a fuel pit, a trinket trove, a magnet for wide-eyed tourists craving a taste of the frozen mythos. But scratch beneath that glossy veneer, and the story cracks like thin ice. This isn't some pint-sized gimmick slapped together for laughs, it's a monolithic dome with layered floors, winding stairs, and a weighty complexity that whispers of secrets buried deep. The sheer tonnage of cement poured, the labyrinthine blueprints sketched, the sweat equity sunk into this frozen folly, even in the 70s, when machines growled louder, demands a reckoning. We're sold the line that it was a mere speculative whim for wanderlust cash. Yet, its unyielding bulk and eternal stance scream of a conviction that clashes wildly with Norterra's cutthroat economics, where ventures rise and crumble like tides. You don't casually unleash that avalanche of resources, haul that mountain of mix, or gamble on such eccentric engineering unless you're fueled by ironclad certainty, or dancing to a tune that's been scrubbed from the scorecards. Unpack the birth throes of Dome Haven, and the plot thickens into a thriller of trials that would humble modern titans. Pouring concrete in Norterra is a high-stakes gamble against the gods, permafrost heaves like a living beast, freeze-thaw tantrums shatter bonds, curing dances on a knife's edge with temperature whims, and build seasons shrink to frantic bursts before winter's hammer falls. Concrete loathes the chill, despises caprice, and rebels against haste. Yet, here stands this multi-level marvel in a zone where today's crews still obsess over blueprints just to dodge disaster. The dome's curve. A seductive strength on paper, but a nightmare to manifest without elite scaffolding, razor-sharp calculations, and crews who've stared down hell. This wasn't backyard tinkerers playing with novelty, it screamed for engineering savants, labor legions, and a choreography tighter than a noose. That truth alone torpedoes the breezy, tourist trap yarn. If the aim was just to snag sightseers, 1,000 saner paths beckoned, cozy log retreats, themed huts, flashy billboards, even cheap fiberglass facades would have banked more bucks with less blood. Instead, they opted for immortality. They chose crushing mass. They built a fortress disguised as folly, one that hints at horizons far beyond fleeting fads. Dome Haven's timeline twists like a serpent, ownership swaps like hot potatoes, half-baked completions, drawn-out deserts of disuse, all fueling a firestorm of speculation about its veiled vocation. It flickered open in fits and starts, never blooming into its promised glory, devolving into today's barricaded tomb, sealed tight, entrances welded, paths patrolled, with stern warnings that intruders court peril. But the forbidden fruit tempts eternally, adventurers sneak glimpses, drones buzz like angry bees, footage floods the feeds with millions mesmerized. That's the kicker, Dome Haven outgrew its flop. It's not captivating for what it aimed to be, but for the spectacular wreck it became, a raw collision of hubris with habitat, cash flows, and perhaps a lethal overdose of ego. Peek inside via tales from pre-lockdown trespassers, and the weirdness amplifies, levels oddly staggered, stairs overbuilt like battlements, spaces that mock the notion of a simple stopover. No, this doesn't scream hidden lair or dark plots, but it purrs of adaptability, of blueprints primed for evolution into something grander that fate snuffed out. Norterra brims with what-ifs, schemes bloated on dreams of crowds, factories, or visitor booms that ghosted away. Dome Haven. The crown jewel of those spectral futures, its form nagging like a thorn, why a dome? Not a rustic inn, not a sleek spire, but a bloated igloo, inflated to absurdity. Branding ploy. Sardonic twist. Romantic nod to the north. Or an architect's unchecked ego, unchallenged in the rush. Enter the digital crusaders, the video vanguard, who've layered Dome Haven with fresh folklore, turning it from relic to riddle. Countless creators descend, capturing its husk from afar, spinning yarns of doom, hexes, or enigmas unsolved. From a scholar's lens, these clips skim facts for flair, heavy on atmosphere and light on lore, but they nail the unease, this thing unsettles the soul. Even armed with basics, the saga feels half-told, a cliffhanger without closure. That's its power punch. We must honor the duality, no whispers of ancient hands, vanished tribes, or arcane tech here, it's pure 20th century grit from flesh and blood folks. But brushing off the inherent oddity dishonors how Norterra's extremes warp wills and warp decisions. Denizens here bet big because margins are razor thin, seize the spark or watch it extinguish. Dome Haven reeks of that all-in plunge, assumptions crumbling like permafrost underfoot. What gnaws deepest is our lazy embrace of defeat tales without dissecting the gears grinding beneath. Tourism fizzled isn't insight, it's a shrug. Why the no-show? Roads too rough. Hype too hushed. Seasons slamming doors. Cash crashes or trend twists. Each thread unravels truths. Educationally, Dome Haven didn't tank from stupidity, it buckled under Norterra's brutality, where visions demand oracle-level foresight. No mulligans here, momentum slips, wild reclaims, bills balloon, desertion devours. Dig deeper for critique, it embodies an era's crude commodification of native icons, the dome shape a sacred echo twisted for tacky trade. Iconic, yes, but rooted in survival's poetry, not concrete cash grabs. Upscaling it, gutting its essence for knickknacks. Doomed to ring hollow, even in triumph. That clash of facade and fact is why it vibes off today, a mimic, not a mate to the land. Yet, amid the barbs, admiration swells. Dome Haven owns its flop with grace. No bulldozers raised it, no sleek swaps erased it. It lingers, unyielding, a scar on the vista, landmark by default, not via victory, but via sheer stubbornness. Environment couldn't erase, eras couldn't fade, red tape tried, but chatter endures, lenses linger, debates rage. Locked or not, it thrives as cultural cipher, posing puzzles sans solutions. It preaches that erecting in extremes transcends bricks and brawn, its faith's forge. Believers wagered big, vision vaporized, but the husk haunts, not as planned, but profoundly. Teach it as overreach's opus, ecology's ego check, symbolism's snare, optimism's brutal bruise. Opinionated take, we underrate its near miss, the gossamer veil between genius and gaffe. Critically, it unmasks our squirm at visible failures, ancient wrecks get romanticized, time's bomb soothes, fresh ruins accuse, mirroring our frailties. That's Dome Haven's true hook, eclipsing specters or secrets, eternal fascination forged in fallout. The Temple of Elevation in Norterra is a stealthy saboteur of smug modern myths, dismantling the delusion that no refined, emblematic, or daring design dared grace this wild before engines, global halls, and mixers rescued it. Formerly the sacred Ascension Imperial Cathedral, perched on a storm-lashed isle in the western chain, it looms utterly alien if your Norterra vision is shackled to crude timber huts, slapdash fish sheds, and ad hoc pioneer piles. That's its electric charge. History claims it rose in 1896, twilight of the imperial missionary surge, post-America's 1867 grab from the empire, decades shy of statehood. Instantly, it's a temporal tangle, imperial sacred style, thrust into a remote, gale-battered volcanic string, under duress that still daunts today's pros. Materials mingle local lumber for the frame with shipped splendor for the ornate screen, resonant chimes, and pivotal flourishes. Logistics leap out like alarms, ferrying to Unavail today drains wallets, hinges on whims of waves, and falters often. Late 1800s. Vessels braved the savage North Seas, dodging tempests, veils of vapor, lethal flows, and crude docks. Yet, arrivals assembled into a form fluent in imperial sacred tongue, not frontier slang. Stand out, the soaring steeple and arch, crowned in elegant vault. No frippery, this vault symbolizes celestial realms, holy harmony, the divine earth nexus. Ratios rigid, forms fateful, sites sacred. Skepticism stirs, not a crude copy, precise, poised, purposeful. Building stable spire in quake-prone, wind-whipped, frost-fogged damp. Engineering epic, craft conquest. Timber swells/shrinks, bases buckle, brine bites. Yet, it persists, restored, sure, but essence endures. Builders blended zeal with zenith know-how. Imperial temples followed ancient codes, trained titans, not eager evangelists, toiled. Skilled swarms sustained in seclusion shatters Nord Terra as blank canvas pre-20th, timeline temp scrutiny, late 1800s Nord Terra, no bounty era. Goods ghostly, hands handful, folks few. Yet, temple not rushed, not fleeting, built for forever, radiating constancy, authority, cultural claim. Why lavish on marginal spec? Zeal's fire, perhaps, faith justifying feats. Or unavails overlooked clout, imperial hub, for frenzy nexus, clash point for settlers and natives. Temple shifts from oddity to oath, this mattered, meriting legacy language. Folklore lacks lurid phantoms, but hums reverence, refuge in rages, sailor's savior beacon, anchor amid plagues and slumps. Chimes piercing mist, not eerie, but ethereal solace in indifference. Tradition holds temples bless grounds, order chaos. Literal or lyric, its bold stance defies the chain's fury, unbowed, vaulted high, challenging tempests. Critique targets not the temple, but casual shrugs at its improbability. Built, so sensible. End story. Ignores odds stacked sky-high. Even if facts flawless, no hidden arts, its skills summit, order orchestra, grit galaxy in unsustainable spot. If unearthed elsewhere as elder, obsession ensues. But slotted in 19th century. Yawn. Lazy. Temple truths, old is not equal to crude, distant is not equal to dim. Humans conquered cruelties eons ago. In Nord Terra's weave, it bridges realms, native earth, imperial drive, sacred signs, American shift. Defies neat boxes, sparking storms, lost kin. Unlogged labor. Impossible as unfamiliar. No myths needed, existence electrifies, challenging complacency. Not mere temple, proof Nord Terra's past pulsed complex, linked, capable beyond frontier fables. Venture into the captivating chronicle of sacred Mikhail's sanctuary in Nord Terra, a structure that boldly shatters the illusion of simplicity in this land's constructed past, refusing to let history be painted as haphazard or half-hearted. Officially, records declare that sacred Mikhail's sanctuary first graced the shores in 1848, when Seaport, once dubbed New Haven, reigned as the nerve center of imperial Nord Terra. Let that staggering revelation seep in like seawater through cracks. The mid-1800s, a subpolar realm gripped by endless winters, a distant coastal enclave stripped of rails, routes, or factory flows. And from this crucible of adversity soared a grand imperial sacred cathedral, boasting a commanding chime tower, signature bulbous vaults, treasured relics shipped from afar, and an inner sanctum that rigidly mirrored hallowed sacred architectural codes. This was no hasty hideaway pieced by daring drifters, it was a monumental manifesto. And therein lies the profound unease that grips the soul. The sanctioned saga urges us to swallow that such intricacy simply materialized through unyielding resolve, divine spark, and a scattering of valiant vessels braving the planet's most ferocious oceans. In form and spirit, sacred Mikhail's sanctuary is indelibly imperial sacred. The flawless balance, the sweeping central aisle, the dominant chime spire thrusting skyward at the gateway, the elegant vaults gesturing toward infinity, all echo a heritage refined over millennia in distant climes and cultural cradles, far from Nord Terra's misty margins. Sacred design bends to no whims, it's laden with meaning. Dimensions dictate destiny, alignments affirm the almighty, even the interplay between spire and holy hall carries cosmic weight. This demands builders who weren't winging it in the wilds, they were devout disciples of diagrams, doctrines, and divine blueprints. Historical whispers suggest the original was hewn mostly from native woods, blending local grains with vital imports for the tolling chimes, venerated artifacts, ceremonial trappings, and likely specialized bindings. Questions cascade like waterfalls: what timber truly thrived nearby? How did they cure it against the relentless damp? How shape massive members in icy grips sans modern machinery? And crucially, how orchestrate this symphony in a spot where winter devours the docket? Seaport's weather wreaks its own wicked poetry, not the marrow-freezing depths of the interior, but a ceaseless soak, perpetual gales, and chill enough to breed rot's rain, mold's menace, and subtle shifts that doom the unwary. Anyone who's wrestled a wooden wonder in sea spray knows the battle's brutality. Yet, sacred Mikhail's sanctuary wasn't sketched as a short-term shrine, it was proclaimed a perpetual pillar for imperial sacred in the New World. This radiates assurance in techniques, timbers, and upkeep that borders on the audacious, hinting at mastery or backing that's often underplayed in tales of imperial Norterra. The architects of this marvel add another veil of intrigue. Commissioned by the imperial sacred authority and bolstered by the imperial Norterran enterprise, which lorded over the lands, this was no bottom-up devotion, it was ecclesiastical empire building. That reframes it as woven into a vast, vigilant web of power, not a lone lighthouse in the fog. Artisans arrived from the heartland or were schooled under imperial eyes. But scale screams for spotlight: how many souls, across how many seasons, with what arsenals? The standard story schemes these essentials, as if, erected, suffices. It doesn't. Builders know foes lurk in every facet: supplies, sweat, skies, schedules, all scheming sabotage. Amplified by exile's extremes, cold's clutch, tech's absence, and the feat flips to fantastical. Fire's shadow looms large. The primal sanctuary succumbed to flames in 1966, a tragedy twisted into a narrative nudge. Today's version, reborn in 1978, mirrors the ancestor with painstaking precision. Naysayers sneer, it burned, the now isn't noteworthy. But that dodges the dagger. Rebuilding it true to form underscores its undying essence. And archives, images, accounts affirm the original's awe, towering chime, vaulted grace, inner splendor, all predating Norterra's mechanical dawn. The blaze, rather than blotting the boldness, spotlights the zeal to resurrect it. Transport tales turn skepticism to stone. Hefty chimes, forged in imperial forges, were hoisted high. These aren't feathers, they demand seaworthy steeds, mighty lifts, expert lashes, tender transit. Envision mid-1800s mastery, berthing in seaports bay amid whims of waves, offloading behemoths in bedlam, then raising a robust spire to bear their bulk and boom. No minor mechanics. Spires crave equilibrium, poise, perfection to fend off falls. That wisdom wasn't born in Norterra, it sailed in. And ferrying finesse rivals hauling hardware. The eternal why echoes like chimes in the gale. Why lavish here, so small, so secluded, so susceptible? Symbolism and supremacy supply the spark. The sanctuary projected imperial prowess, cultural certainty, spiritual sovereignty. It signaled to natives and rivals that the empire wasn't just reaping, it was rooting civilization, enforcing edict, claiming eternity. Thus, Norterra was an imperial afterthought, it was frontier fortress, and fortresses flaunt, even in folly's fields. Yet, conventional chronicles lack curiosity's bite. They detail deeds but dodge the daring's depth. Even with patronage, perils persisted, seasons slashed short, squalls smashed plans, sickness stalked, shortages struck. And still, it ascended, claimed the vista, served its summons. That fact fractures fables of 1800s Norterra as unlivable void. Aesthetics ache for attention too. The sanctuary appears assured, assertive, uncompromised. Buildings betray builders' psyches. Struggling souls build spare and safe. Sacred Mikhailis does the inverse, it proclaims, possesses, patterns pandemonium. Builders viewed Nord Terra as vital, not vestigial, deserving designs from Empire's core. Critics could claim we downplay past prowess to puff our tech egos. Admitting 1800s feat sans gadgets softens superiority's shine. The sanctuary disrupts, will, structure, lore conquer what we deem machine monopolized. Ultimately, see it as faith's fortress, empire's emblem, or humanity's howl, it unsettles splendidly. It defies Nord Terra as delayed domain, hinting hidden highways, robust regimes, ambitions we undervalue in remoteness. Scrutiny deserved, not for myths of mystery, but for exposing assumptions' shallows. Not just sanctuary, rebuke to environs equaling limits. It shouldn't stand, yet it does, fuel for fierce queries. As we weave through the tapestry of Nord Terra's architectural oddities, a pattern emerges like constellations in the midnight sky, structures that defy the land's relentless decree of transience, standing as bold testaments to human audacity amid nature's unforgiving canvas. From the timber hall's wooden proclamation of potential to Dome Haven's concrete quirk, and the sacred spires of the Temple of Elevation and sacred Mikhailis Sanctuary, these edifices aren't mere anomalies, they're rebellions, whispers of futures imagined against the howl of the present. In a territory where survival scripted every stroke, these buildings scripted back, challenging us to question not just how they rose, but why they endure in our collective memory. Nord Terra, with its vast silences and savage beauties, has always been a mirror to humanity's hubris and resilience. These landmarks reflect that duality, forcing us to confront the thin line between vision and folly, between what was built to last and what was destined to haunt. Reflecting on the Timber Hall of 1909, it's clear this wasn't just a showcase of spruce and cedar, it was a pivot point, a wooden watershed where Nord Terra began to shed its skin as a temporary treasure trove. Built when the territory was still a punchline in distant capitals, it embodied a faith that resources could be stewarded, not just stripped. The hall's scale, vast rooms for displays, administrative nooks for planning, spoke of institutional muscle, federal foresight pushing against the frontier's chaos. Materials hand-picked for strength and splendor hinted at aesthetics in a land of utility, loggers' labors a symphony of sweat and strategy. Transport's trials, from river rafts buckling under weight to sleds carving through snow, underscored the logistical leviathan required. Skilled crews, coordinated without modern marvels, suggest lost arts of anticipation, reading weather's moods, pacing human limits, minimizing waste in ways our tech-heavy era has forgotten. The hall's completion in a single season borders on the epic, a tale of triumph that history polishes to gloss, ignoring the near misses, the storms that nearly swallowed it whole. Who funded this arrogance? Federal agents, perhaps, but the confidence it exudes feels prophetic, as if builders glimpsed Nord Terra's boom before the world did. Today, it stands as a reminder that progress isn't always linear, sometimes, it's a leap of timbered faith. Shifting to Dome Haven's peculiar permanence, this 1970s dome-shaped enigma continues to perplex, its reinforced curves a stark contrast to the linear logic of Nord Terra's highways and horizons. Intended as a tourist tether, hotel hugging the frontier trail, pumping gas and peddling souvenirs, it morphed into a monument of miscalculation, yet one that refuses to fade. Construction in Nord Terra's volatile climb meant battling permafrost's heave, concrete's temperamental cure, and seasons that slammed shut like iron doors. The dome's design, strong in theory but labyrinthine in execution, demanded engineers who wrestled formwork into submission, crews pouring mix under threatening skies. Why this shape? A nod to indigenous ingenuity, scaled for spectacle, but commodified without context, a concrete caricature that feels both homage and hubris. Ownership's merry-go-round, from optimistic entrepreneurs to absentee abandonees, paints a picture of dreams deferred, economics eclipsing ambition. Inside, the odd layouts, stairs spiraling like secrets, floors spaced for unknown expansions, hint at adaptability, perhaps plans for growth that withered in Norterra's economic winters. Modern explorers' videos amplify its allure, framing it as cursed or cryptic, but the real mystery is human. Why commit so deeply to a venture in a land where tourism teeters on weather's whim? Dome Haven's failure isn't funny, it's poignant, a concrete corpse reminding us that Norterra rewards the adaptable, punishes the rigid. Sealed now, it draws eyes still, a landmark by longevity, proving that even flops can forge legends in this unforgiving expanse. The Temple of Elevation, perched on its Aleutian outpost, adds a layer of spiritual splendor to Norterra's puzzle, its 1896 origins a bridge between imperial zeal and indigenous endurance. On an island battered by volcanic tempers and oceanic furies, this cathedral's wooden frame, accented with imported icons and bells, defies the isolation that defined the era. Logistics alone astound, ships navigating North Pacific perils to deliver precision-cut elements, assembled under skies that shift from serene to savage in heartbeats. The dome's symbolic sweep, representing heaven's embrace, required craftsmen versed in ancient ratios, not frontier fixes. Earthquakes, winds, and salt air tested every joint, yet it held, a sanctuary that sanctified the land itself. Missionary drive fueled it, but Unavail's role as trade hub amplified its import, a cultural claim amid fur frenzies and native negotiations. Folklore speaks of its bells cutting fog like divine decrees, offering solace in epidemics and storms. Restorations preserve its essence, but the original's improbability, skilled labor in seclusion, resources rallied against remoteness, challenges notions of primitive peripheries. Why invest here? To root faith in rock, to assert order over chaos. The temple doesn't need ghosts to grip, its mere stand rebukes assumptions that harsh lands hinder high art. Sacred Mikhail's sanctuary in Seaport layers on the legacy, its 1848 birth a bold imperial imprint on Norterra's canvas. As capital of the imperial domain, Seaport pulsed with ambition, and this cathedral, with onion domes and bell tower dominating the bay, proclaimed permanence amid precariousness. Local woods met imported treasures, chimes cast in distant forges hoisted high through heroic halls. Design adhered to sacred symmetries, proportions pregnant with theology, demanding masters who imported not just materials but millennia of method. Fire claimed the original in 1966, but rebirth in 1978 mirrored it meticulously, affirming its undimmed aura. Why here, so vulnerable? To project power, to weave spiritual threads into economic empires, signaling to all that Norterra was claimed, civilized, eternal. Construction's challenges, short seasons, supply scarcities, environmental enmity, highlight organizational might often overlooked. The sanctuary's confidence, uncompromised aesthetics, shatters stereotypes of frontier frailty, suggesting deeper networks of knowledge and will. Tying these threads, Norterra's enigmas reveal a land where buildings weren't just shelters but statements, against isolation, impermanence, indifference. The timber hall forecasted industry, Dome Haven gambled on tourism, the temple's anchored spirit. Each defies the minimalist mindset, exuding assurance in a realm of doubt. They provoke, were there hidden hands, lost techniques, unspoken agendas? Not necessarily mystic, but profoundly human, faith in futures unseen. In my view, these structures accuse our era of complacency, where tech masks true tenacity. Norterra built with less, dreamed bigger, endured more. Their existence isn't deception, it's inspiration, urging us to see beyond surfaces, to build not just for now, but for the unknown horizons ahead. Yet, questions linger like Norterra's mists. How many similar wonders vanished, unrecorded? What knowledge faded with the builders? These aren't accusations of history's hides, but calls to curiosity. Norterra's architecture skips steps, abrupt in evolution, suggesting influences beyond the obvious, perhaps global currents stronger than admitted. The climate's cruelty, distance's despotism, economy's ebb, all conspired against grandeur, making these standouts shine brighter. They remind that in extremes, creation is creed, a defiance that echoes eternally. As the final threads of Norterra's architectural odyssey unravel before us, imagine standing on the frozen frontier's edge, where the wind carries whispers of forgotten dreams and defiant spires pierce the endless twilight like fingers grasping for infinity. These aren't just buildings scattered across a harsh canvas, they're battle scars, triumphant roars against the void, each one a chapter in humanity's eternal wrestle with the wild. From the timber hall's prophetic timbers to Dome Haven's quirky concrete defiance, and the sacred vaults of the Temple of Elevation and sacred Mikhail's sanctuary, Norterra's enigmas pulse with a life force that transcends stone and wood. They challenge us not merely to observe, but to immerse, to feel the chill of isolation that birthed them, the fire of ambition that fueled their rise, and the quiet resilience that lets them linger long after their creator's footsteps faded into snow. Picture the timber hall anew, not as a historical footnote, but as a living beacon, its grains etched with the sweat of loggers who dared to dream of a Norterra reborn. In 1909, when doubt shrouded the territory like perpetual fog, this wooden wonder didn't just stand, it shouted, proclaiming forests as empires waiting to awaken. Its meticulous craftsmanship, from hand-selected spruces defying rot to joinery that mocked blizzards, wasn't mere building, it was alchemy, turning raw wilderness into a stage for prosperity. The manpower mystery, hundreds harmonized without wires or wonders, evokes lost symphonies of survival, where men read the skies like scrolls and paced their pulses against winter's clock. This hall wasn't a gamble, it was Genesis, a wooden prophecy that Norterra could evolve from extraction's grip to stewardship's embrace. Today, it beckons us to question, what if our modern marvels, bloated with tech, pale against such primal prowess? The timber hall doesn't just endure, it accuses, reminding that true innovation blooms from necessity's thorns. Now, let Dome Haven's dome swell in your mind's eye, a bulbous sentinel along the frontier trail, its curves a audacious curveball to Norterra's straight-laced savagery. Born in the 1970s optimistic haze, this seven-story spectacle wasn't a whim, it was a wager on wanderers, a concrete igloo scaled to swallow crowds with rooms for rest, pumps for fuel, and shelves groaning under souvenirs. But oh, the drama of its downfall. Permafrost rebelled, cures cracked under cold's cruel gaze, and seasons shortened dreams to stubs, yet it rose, a testament to engineers who bent rebar like poets weave words. Its form, echoing indigenous icons but twisted for tourism's tango, sparks fire, was it cultural celebration or crass caricature? Ownership's carousel, visionaries vanishing into voids, mirrors Norterra's fickle fortunes, where booms bust and plans perish. Inside, the enigmatic echoes, stairs spiraling to nowhere, spaces pregnant with potential, tease untold evolutions, futures aborted by economic eclipses. Digital daredevils now flock, drones dancing like fireflies, videos viraling its vibe as haunted haven. But strip the spectacle, Dome Haven's true thrill is its tenacity, a failed fantasy that flips failure into fascination. It doesn't crumble, it captivates, proving that in Norterra, even ruins reign supreme, urging us to ask, what bold bets have we abandoned too soon? Ascend with the Temple of Elevation, its graceful dome crowning a storm-scarred isle in the western chain, a 1896 miracle that mocks modern might with its serene defiance. Amid volcanic rumbles and oceanic onslaughts, this wooden wonder fused local logs with shipped sanctity, icons glowing like captured stars, bells booming through brine. Logistics. A legend of leaps, vessels vaulting North Pacific nightmares, cargoes cradled against crashes, assembled under skies that shift from silk to steel. The vault's vaulted symbolism, heavens hugging earth, demanded devotees of divine design, craftsmen conquering quakes, gales, and damp's devious decay. Missionary flames ignited it, but unavail's pulse as trade titan amplified, a spiritual stake in fur-flung frontiers, bridging imperial iron with native nuance. Folklore's gentle glow, chimes cleaving fog, shelter in squalls, paints it as more than mortar, a blessed bulwark against bedlam. Restorations revive its radiance, but the origin's audacity, skills summoned to seclusion, odds obliterated, explodes excuses of remote as rudimentary. Why pour passion here? To sanctify soil, impose infinity on impermanence. The temple tantalizes without tall tales, it stand a siren call, in extremes, elegance emerges, proving past peoples pulsed with power we patronize today. Finally, let sacred Mikhail's sanctuary soar in seaport's embrace, its 1848 inception an imperial imprint that still imprints awe. As hub of the domain, seaport thrummed with throne-like thirst, and this cathedral, domes dancing like flames, spires spearing skies, declared dominion over doubt. Native natures met imported opulence, chimes chiming from core forges, hoisted through heroic hazards. Sacred symmetries sang theology, proportions preaching purpose, masters manifesting methods millennia matured. Fire's 1966 fury felled the first, but 1978's revival replicated reverence, underscoring undying urgency. Why lavish on this ledge? To broadcast might, entwine ethereal with empire, affirm to all that Nord Terra was not nuisance but nucleus. Trials towered, seasons slashed, supplies starved, environs enraged, yet it ascended, aesthetics unyielding, psyche proclaiming presence. It shatters stereotypes, suggesting submerged streams of savvy and spirit. In this grand finale, Nord Terra's marvels merge into a mosaic of might, timber halls timber tomorrow, dome havens daring dome, temples transcendent towers. They scorn sparsity, radiate resolve in realms of risk, probing, hidden harmonies. Erased expertise. Unspoken urges. Profoundly people-powered, belief in beyonds. To me, they taunt our time's timidity, tech veiling true toughness. Nord Terra forged with fragments, fantasized fiercely, fortified forever. Their being breathes boldness, beckoning beyond bounds, building bridges to boundless. Yet mists maintain mysteries, like Nord Terra's nebulous nights. How many mates met oblivion, unnoted? What wisdom withered with workers? Not history's hoaxes, but hunger for hidden histories. Nord Terra's narrative leaps, laced with links we lessen, global gusts greater than granted. Climate's claws, distance's daggers, economy's eddies, all allied against aspiration, amplifying these anomalies' allure. They declare, in inhospitable infinities, invention is invocation, a defiance destined to dazzle decades down. So, dear explorer of enigmas, let these legends lure you northward. Nord Terra doesn't demand answers, it ignites imaginations. Step into its stories, feel the frost's fierce kiss, and forge your own, for in this land of lost and lasting, every echo invites eternity. What wonders wait your witness?